Welcome to the first bonus extended episode of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, we're going to be talking in depth about how to build a positive school culture. So I hope everyone's summer is off to a great start. It feels really weird not to be podcasting with you each week, but I'm using the break between season 1 of Truth for Teachers and season 2, which begins August 2nd, to work on some other projects, and that's been really great. And of course, I've been able to also plan some bonus episodes. So each month in between podcast seasons, I'm going to do a longer, more casual episode where I invite guests to help me really dig deeply into a topic that is important for teachers. So this is the first of those bonus extended episodes, and I wanted to use it to talk about school culture. And I've tried to pick panelists that represent different areas of the country and different grade levels, different types of communities, rural, urban, suburban. And I wanted to have people in a wide variety of positions represented. I wanted to have someone who's in the classroom, an instructional coach, an assistant principal, and also a principal. So I'm really honored to be joined by 4 educators who I have long admired for doing that hard work of transforming school culture. And I know they're going to have a lot of really practical insight for you all. So whether you love the place that you work and you just want to keep making it better, or whether you have kind of a toxic school environment and you want to know how to create change, this podcast will be for you, and we're hoping to give you some really practical ideas to walk away with. So I'm going to pause for a moment now and let our guests introduce themselves. So Amber, I want to start with you. Your experience so far has been as a teacher and as an assistant principal, but you're going to be moving into a principalship in the fall, right?
Yes, I am. I'm Amber Teamann. I am in a small school district, Wiley, Texas, Wiley ISD. This is my second year, and I'm beginning my second year in this school district, which has been a big change. I came from a very large district. I was an assistant principal for 5 years and was named principal of Witt Elementary just 2 weeks ago. So I'm really excited to be able to take everything that I've experienced and learned, both from being a teacher. I was in the technology department for 2 years as a tech facilitator, just trying to help teachers, and then became an assistant principal and loved it. And now I have the opportunity to be the principal, so I can't wait for that. Coming up, I'm Amber8 on Twitter, and I also blog at amberteamann.com, where I just kind of talk about all the things that we do in this game of education. So you can also find out more about me there.
After Amber, thanks for introducing yourself. It's great to meet you, by the way. It's our first time meeting as well. My name is Krysta DeBoer, and I currently serve as the executive director for the Center for Urban Teaching, which is an organization that exists to identify, prepare, and support high-performing urban teachers. We're a nonprofit Christian organization. Before joining the Center for Urban Teaching, I served as a 7th and 8th grade English language arts instructor for Hope Christian School Prima in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is a private choice school, and also served as an instructional coach.
Hey everyone, so happy to meet you all. So I teach at a school my name is Hope King. I teach at a school called the Ron Clark Academy, and we are located in southeast Atlanta, Georgia. We're a middle school grades 5 through 8. The unique thing about our school is that not only are we a middle school, but we're also a teacher training facility. Every year we open our doors to teachers. Ron and Kim feel passionately about sharing our school culture and how we've created that environment that really promotes student engagement and academic success. So we invite teachers in each year to come in on Fridays. It's pretty much every Friday. And the teachers come in and observe our classrooms. They sit through workshops. And we have trained over 20,000 educators to date. This year alone, we trained 5,000 educators, which was a great opportunity and experience. And I also blog at Second Grade Shenanigans. And my Instagram is also Second Grade Shenanigans.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Casas. I'm currently the principal at Bettendorf High School in Bettendorf, Iowa. We sit right on the Iowa-Illinois border. Our Bettendorf is one of 4 cities that makes up the Quad Cities. It is more of a suburban school. quite frankly, more of an affluent school. But honestly, demographics have been changing here over the last 13 years. This is my 14th year. I'll be beginning here at Bettendorf High School, and we have watched our low SES population, although it's not significant, grow from 8% 14 years ago to now 25% here at the high school. And so across the district, the demographics population certainly is changing. I have been a high school administrator now, or administrator, I should say, for 22 years. I actually started my administrative career in Milwaukee Public Schools, Krista, so I just thought I'd share that out with you. Like I said, I'm now finishing up just my 14th year here at Bettendorf High School. So my Twitter handle is Casas_Jimmy, and I also blog at jimmycasas.com. So just very honored to be here tonight. So thank you, Angela, for having me.
Thank you all so much for introducing yourself and for being here to share your ideas. I am really excited to have this particular group here because you all are people that I know have really made it happen when it comes to school culture. And I feel like you know a lot about what works and also what doesn't work. And I know that a lot of the teachers who are listening have never even gotten to visit, much less get a chance to work at a school where teaching and learning environment is really a positive place and not a toxic place. So can you create a picture for us of what a positive school culture looks like from your perspective and share some things that happen in your school that make it a healthy place for kids and teachers? I'll start, Hope, with you because I'm really excited to hear more about what it's like to teach at Ron Clark Academy. That's pretty much a dream teaching assignment, isn't it?
Definitely a dream for sure. I'm so blessed to work there. First of all, just because to be able to work with educators like Ron Clark and Kim Bearden, who have really paved the way for educators, you know, not only just striving to really reach out to students and create those relationships, but also to reach out to their teachers. So I know we're going to focus on school environment. I'm definitely going to share some of the things that we do with our students. But, you know, first of all, I think it definitely starts with the administration of the school and the way that Ron and Kim are just very, you know, they trust us. They place so much trust in us as educators, and they really allow us to educate our students how our students need to be educated. We spend a lot of time developing relationships with our students and learning their different personalities. And so for me as a teacher to get to go in my classroom each day and not feel that strain of, you know, so much pressure being placed on this is how you need to teach, this is how you need to do it, this is the standard that you need to cover today, it allows me a lot of freedom and allows me to work and play on my strengths as an educator and, you know, really pour into my lessons in my areas of strength, which then brings my students and builds that excitement and engagement. So I definitely have to, you know, shout out to them because they are so supportive of us and, you know, they definitely are there to help us in any way. A lot of things that we do for our students, I would say one of the main things that we do to create such a positive school environment is we have something called the house program. So when our students come in as fifth graders, you know, it can be kind of overwhelming because first of all, it's the Ron Clark Academy and they've heard about it and they've learned about it. And so they're coming in as fifth graders and our students enter the school in fifth grade. If we lose any students in fifth grade, we don't replace them. So basically they're looping up each year and we keep the same classes. So when they come in, like I said, you know, little fifth graders and here there are these big 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, it can be quite overwhelming. They feel out of place. You know, they're leaving their schools and coming to a brand new environment. So the house program is basically based off of the Harry Potter books. And what we do is on the very first day of school, our kids come into the building and they're all sitting there and they have that shell-shocked look. And, you know, we try to make them feel as welcome as possible before, but each student is called one by one. And when Ron calls their name, they actually run up to this giant wheel that we have in our school, and it's divided into the 4 colors of the houses. So we have blue, which is Rever, red, which is Amistad, green, which is Isabendi, and black, which is Altruismo. So they run up to the school, they say their name, they spin the wheel, and they run up the stairs, and they go down our slide, and when they come out of the slide, the wheel is spoken, and it has placed them into a house, which really becomes their family. So what you see is you see these 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in that house really embrace that new 5th grader. They get the tie of their house. They're immediately put into a family. They're placed with a mentor in that house. So that really motivates them because they immediately feel a part of something. So that on that very first day of school really sets the tone and establishes that culture to allow the students, you know, to say, hey, I have a place that I belong. I'm a part here. I'm not just a new student. I have a new family that I know I can count on. They're going to count on me. And so the students work together all year in that house to earn house points. And then at the end of the year, we named the house champion. And this year, the house champion was actually the House of Revere. So our academic celebration was all decked out in blue to celebrate that house. But, that is really one major way that we established from day one the tone of the school and really a positive environment where students are uplifting one another and motivating each other towards success.
This is what's kind of fun about doing this. I'm sitting here taking some notes about what Hope is saying, so I'm just trying to generate how I can transform some of that into the high school level. So let me just share a couple things here real quick. I certainly agree. I always look at it no different than when you walk into a classroom, right? You walk into a classroom, you just feel that there's a sense of energy, there's a sense of learning, there's a sense of kids feeling this passion, and you just know what quality teaching looks like. So it's a very healthy environment. Well, it's the same thing when you walk into a school, right? And so I always think about that, like, what do I want people to feel and think when they walk into a school environment? So I think that begins from the very first moment you walk to the doors. Even when you walk onto the campus, what does it look like? Does it look professional? Does it look clean? Is there a great sense of pride? Can you see that already just from the way the facilities look from the outside as you enter a building? How are you greeted? How are you welcomed? What's it feel like? What's it sound like? And so one of those things that's really important when you walk in to a building is to be able to recognize right from the very beginning, this must be a really special place just by the way you're watching people interact with each other. There's a certain energy, people are smiling, there's laughter going on, the talk is positive, all those types of things. And quite frankly, there's a lot of kids around, and that's what we're about as schools. So do we walk into an environment and you can automatically see a lot of kids around. So I always try to look when I walk into buildings how the kids, number one, are interacting with each other, and probably more importantly, how the kids are interacting with the adults and how the adults are interacting with the kids. And I think that says a lot about the school. And just in terms of observation and seeing what's happening. But as you look around the school, oftentimes we talk about these mission statements and these, vision statements, and what's the signage look like? What's on the walls? What is the school saying about their school when you walk in? How is it represented? Does it send you an automatically impression that this school is about students first? Is that the mindset you get right away when you walk in? And so I think one of the ways you can do that is spend a lot of time making sure that what you put in the school really represents student voice, students' talents, and it paints a picture about what this place is really all about. So a couple things just to share, just a couple tidbits. But number one, in all of our offices in our school, whether it be the attendance office, the main office, the guidance office, the nurse's office, the library, wherever the offices are in the school, all of our frontline people are all students. I think it's really important to always send the message what we're about. And I think that quickly gives you the impression when you walk in, oh, look, students are here. And one of the things I've learned from that is it's really neat to see the relationships that are formed with the students by the adults in the building, also with the community. But it also turns out to be that those students become advocates for the school because they see what happens on a daily basis in these environments. And they talk about those things with their peers and they share about what happens. And I think that's always a really positive thing when kids feel empowered in an environment like that. We spend a lot of finances, money, quite frankly, supporting our students' talents in terms of specifically like artwork. We have artwork all of our school that's all student produced. So all the artwork is student produced. We scholarship that artwork to our students, so we pay them for their work. And then we display that. We're always rotating and keeping it fresh, but it always stays up because our motto is pretty much that everybody in a healthy culture should have the opportunity to leave their legacy. And I just think that's really important to make sure that we always remember that and why we're here. So those are just a couple of things I'd say.
At my school, I think one of the most important things is that everyone feel as if they belong, as if they're included. And I try really hard to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that everybody's on the same team. And that's a big focus for all of us, is that we are that campus, and whether it be a collective hashtag or a collective t-shirt or a collective saying, I use a lot of that's not what we do here at Watkins, or that's not what Whit Wolves would be doing, just to really kind of have that cohesive collegiate thing so that they feel as if they're a bigger part of something bigger than what they are. I don't want them to think of themselves as first graders or as fourth graders. I want them to think of elementary students in Wiley ISD. one of our big pushes in my district is character, and we have what we call the Wiley Way. And we spend a lot of time focusing on those character traits. Not that we don't have high standards, because we also have high instructional standards, but we have high character standards. We want to see good people and work really hard and focus a lot on behaviors and managing behaviors and not to make permanent decisions based on temporary situations. So having that collaborative, open space that we are able to talk and share and be open and transparent with, that's really what we do to try to help promote as much positivity as possible. We're all about transparency. My superintendent is phenomenal. He posts selfies with kids. He walks onto the campus, and he is a veritable rock star. They're so excited to see him. Our parents know who he is. We see him in the community. And to me, there's just nothing that speaks more to his commitment to our kids, including my own personal children, than to see him taking pictures with my kid in math class. Like, I just think that's amazing. I know he's in the buildings. I know he's invested. And so I then am able to emulate those traits that I know our community feels so highly for, back to our parents. And it's kind of hard to argue with an administrator who you think may or may not care about your kid when you see me with them all the time. And when I'm in the classrooms and I'm with those teachers, they know I care. They know I'm invested, because I put myself out there. I'm not in my office. I'm sitting in their floor. I'm playing football at recess. I'm scooping up food off the lunchroom floor. I'm a part of the climate and the culture. And I think that really lends itself to a team effort, a collaborative effort. And I think that that's really what lends towards a positive nature for our school.
Wow, I am taking so many notes. I almost wish I wasn't having to talk at all, because I am just writing down everything and resonating with all three of you, Jimmy, Hope, and Amber. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. When I think about school culture, I feel like I'm going to be repeating a lot of what's already been said. But one of the things that right away comes to mind is related to what Jimmy was talking about, with just the idea of what does it feel like, what does it look like when you walk in the building. And for me, the first thing that comes to mind is that what it looks like and feels like is a reflection of a culture of high expectations, that you're fixing the broken windows. So, the little things like, is a poster half falling off of the wall? Is there garbage in the hallways? Are we taking time to pick it up? I remember visiting a school in New York, and I saw, the principal was giving us a tour of the school, and he stopped and he picked up a piece of paper off of the ground. And some people might say, oh, that's not what leaders, that he has somebody else that does that. But to him, that's what he did. He's fixing all the broken windows. So that's just that culture of high expectations. And when I was listening to Hope and Amber talk, I kept hearing something that resonates really powerfully with me, which is just creating a strong culture of a team and a family. I heard both of you talk about Hope say, like, this is a place that I belong. I belong here. And Amber, you talked about being part of something bigger than what they are, that they belong to something that's bigger than them. And I think that that's just really powerful to create that feeling like I belong here. This is unique for me personally. And one of the ways that I see people create a culture of team and family is by having those special rites of passage in place. And so I hope you talked about how it's very similar to operates, right? And when I was a teacher at Hope Christian School, one of the ways that we made the students feel like they had become a part of the middle school was that they earned their tie as part of their uniform when they became fifth graders, or any new middle schooler coming in through sixth or eighth grade, is that they earn their tie to be as recognition of being part of and adopted by the middle school family. So that's just something that really stood out to me. I think another couple of key components is that when you're in a school that has a really strong school culture, you see a culture of respect, not just between the students and the teachers, but between the teachers and other teachers, between the administration and teachers, between the parents and all the stakeholders operate with the respect, just that general baseline of respect for everyone, from everyone, every time. And then I think another key piece is And I think everybody hit on it to some degree. Amber, I heard you say it when you said, they know that I care. It's just that culture of unconditional love. And just knowing that, that you really do care. This isn't about a paycheck for the teachers in the building. Like, the kids know that you're invested in who they are, not just as students, but invested in who they are as people. And I would say the biggest thing that stands out when you walk into a school that has a strong culture is that just knowing that your beliefs consistently guide your behaviors. It doesn't always matter what posters you have up. People want to see you walk the walk, and just knowing that what you believe impacts your behavior. And so one of the most baseline beliefs that I've noticed come across in a lot of schools that have a strong culture is that you actually have to believe that school culture matters, that school culture impacts and determines outcomes. And when I talk about school culture, I don't just mean this, just the student culture. I mean the staff culture too. That the staff culture has a direct impact on student outcomes as well as the student culture does.
And Krista, you have a unique position because you're supporting a lot of different teachers in a lot of different schools. So I'm going to kind of combine two questions here together. How do you, as a leader, show support to your staff members and help foster those strong relationships? Or how do you see other school leaders doing this? And then also, how do you see teachers within the school doing it? Because I think there's a misperception that only administrators are in charge of school culture. And I think that teachers have more power than they realize a lot of times when it comes to influencing school culture and really building one another up. So what do you see teachers do, and what do you see school leaders do?
Sure. So from just my personal belief and what I do with my own staff, to answer the first part of your question, is just person first, employee or teacher second. That you know your people and you know them really, really well. One of the things that we do as a staff, and we have 160 plus people studying to become teachers working with us this summer, is we know all of their love languages. So we know what fills their cup, we know what empties their cup, and we know what makes them feel appreciated and valued as a person. And across the board, I would say that as far as leaders go, in this I feel like actually speaks to all teachers, because it's just, I believe that all teachers are leaders and that you lead from whatever position you're in. And if your leadership is all about you, it actually comes to an end when you come to an end. So when you stop in serving that position, all your work comes to an end if you've made your leadership all about you and not about carrying on the mission and vision. So some things that I see that I myself try to do and I see really great leaders do is say yes as often as you can to your team. And I feel like Hope, I heard you reference this earlier on when you said that they allow you to be creative within the standards and expectations. They're not telling you how you have to get there. They're just saying this is the standard. So say yes as often as you can, as long as it doesn't compromise the mission and vision. And as leaders, I think practicing these two words as often as possible, you decide. Just those two words. Just say that as often as you can to your team. You decide. And also the other thing that I see schools and leaders doing particularly well to retain their top talent is actually investing in their top talent instead of managing and containing their low performers. So too often in schools where the really great people are leaving, you go in and you see that those people aren't getting any coaching, aren't getting any mentoring support because the leaders say, well, they're okay, they're good. They don't need me to be in their classroom all the time. And instead they are performing triage in the classroom down the hall where the person probably shouldn't even be in the field of education anymore because they're just not a good fit. So really investing in your top talent instead of managing and containing those low performers. And lastly, I guess I really appreciated the part of your question where you said, what about teachers? And I feel like, leaders oftentimes point fingers at teachers and say, build a strong culture. And teachers often point fingers at leaders and say, you build a strong culture. Like it's bad here because of the leader. But the truth is that we all have a stake in building a really strong culture. And if your leader is somebody who struggles with building a strong culture, then come alongside of them and help them foster those great relationships, help them celebrate wins on your team, recognize your own teammates for what they're doing really well, get a book club started, read Angela's book, right? Awakened, and rally around that, start forming positive mindsets. And, it doesn't have to just, the leader is a critical part of setting the culture, but they're not the only part of setting the culture. Everyone has a part in it.
I love that, Krista. I think you're spot on there. I think oftentimes the leaders are the ones, where all the responsibility about the culture is. Sometimes we look at the leadership and who's to blame and so forth. And certainly the leader has probably a tremendous responsibility. And you even used the word earlier, Krista, the whole idea of modeling. And I just think that's really what it comes down to, is how important that modeling is. And so, I always think about one of the things Todd Whitaker always talks about is, every teacher should be supporting their principal to want to be great, right? And that's what our teachers should be doing, in the same way our teachers should be doing that, or our administrators should be doing that for our teachers, and the same thing our teachers should be doing for our kids. And that is, we should want everyone in the organization to be successful. So, I still think the whole idea of teacher support really starts with the fundamental principle, and the foundation has to really begin with the whole idea of relationships. We talk about it all the time, the relationships. But I do think the one part where, I learned a long time ago, because I was blessed to have a fantastic mentor, was it really all starts in the hiring process. I mean, the modeling begins immediately from day one. And so, one of the things I've always thought when it comes to the hiring process is, I want to model right away from the very beginning how important those relationships are to me. And that begins by me initiating that, right? I have to initiate the call. I'm the one making the contact with the potential applicant to have a discussion with them over the phone. I want to do that because I want them to hear my voice. I want them to hear my passion. I want them to hear my excitement and my enthusiasm for this awesome job that we do every day, right? We are so blessed to be in this field called education, that I never want to take that for granted. And so, I want to also, when we're lining those up, I always try to be very flexible. Oftentimes we hear situations where teachers are called and told, hey, we have interviews Friday. They're between the hours of 1, 2, and 3. It's a Tuesday afternoon. Pick a slot, right? And I just think that's so unfair to people right away from the very beginning, that I'd rather say to people, hey, you know what, we're going to, been selected for an interview. When would you like to come in, right? Maybe give them a time frame, but let them make that decision and be flexible and model that right from the very beginning, because that's exactly what we're going to expect them to do at some point in their classroom with kids. And so I think it's also really important that when candidates come in, I still sometimes get nervous that administrators want to play the gotcha game a little bit. They want to trick people, and I just think that's so wrong. I think what we should be doing is setting people up for success, letting them know, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's how many people are going to be in the interview team. We're going to ask you to teach a lesson, whatever that looks like. And if you're going to ask them to do that, then again, we should be setting them up for success, which means right away modeling again the importance of having our teachers contact and say, hey, here's what we did the day before. Here's what I was planning on doing that day. Here's what I'm going to do the next day, to try to help them and support them, so we don't try to trick them and catch them, right? And so again, just modeling that all the time. And the other piece is just the follow-up. I've seen so many times teachers be treated so disrespectfully that they give up their time, they make the effort, they come for an interview, and for an administrator not even to have the courtesy to call them back, or to give them a timeline, or be considerate and very sensitive to that, or even to send a letter. What's it take to pick up a phone and say, hey, thank you so much for taking the time. I think people remember those types of things. And I think that says something about the culture and the credibility, and quite frankly, the culture of the entire organization, when leaders themselves are modeling and we're treating people like we would never want to be treated ourselves. So I always think the mindset I always have is, what are people saying about the building leader, and what are people saying about the school when they do the interview process, right? I want them walking out here saying, geez, I want to work for that principal so bad, or geez, I really love to work in that school. I think really we have to always remember those types of things. And of course, once we hire people, I think the onboarding process is huge, right? Unfortunately, it's tough to be a new teacher these days. You get thrown in, there's so many things that you have to know and be responsible for. So what does that onboarding process look like? What is the mentoring process? We have both formal mentors and informal mentors. I'm blessed because I have instructional coaches as well. I have 3 in my building, and they're very, very, in tune in terms of offering support to all of our teachers, not just our new teachers. But I always like to say that it's really important that we never forget our veteran teachers, and we have to continue to invest in them. They are the backbone of our schools, and we can't ever forget that. We tend to put a lot of effort and energy into new teachers, and we kind of forget about our veteran teachers. So, we got to make sure we're always investing in everyone. We do provide new teacher workshops for all of our teachers on an ongoing basis throughout the year as well, and that's just to continue offering that support to build that team and really, really intentionally invest in our people. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can that people feel not only inspired, but they aspire to be, leaders, right, in our organization. So, and it kind of just goes back to that mindset that everybody deserves to be a part of something great. So I think that's, critical that we remember that.
I think one of the most important things that teachers can realize is that they are such a huge critical part of the culture and climate of the campus. I think if you have to wait for a title to feel as if you need to be able to lead, then you're looking at it all wrong. And I want all of my teachers to feel like they have just as much of a voice and just as much of an investment in what we do as I do. I work 10, 12-hour days. I miss putting my kids to bed. I miss having dinner with my family because I'm there. And I want them to see that. And I want them to not see me doing it because I'm getting paid, because obviously we're not getting paid that much, but they see me doing it because I care that much and because I have that vested interest in seeing our students be successful. That's what it boils down to, is how enabling are you to allow your teachers to become successful, to allow students to become successful. I want my teachers to be the very best that they can be, and they see me bend over backwards to make that happen, whether it be by purchasing a resource or sending them to a training or just telling them, hey, you know what, that was awesome. You did a great job today. I'm constantly looking for the good to praise because I want that kind of environment. And in turn, they see me saying that to students, and hopefully they are going to model that back into our buildings. Being able to support positivity, they don't hear me complaining. They don't hear me whining about how tired I am or how I have to get back up the next morning. I can't believe we just come back. Oh, we only 10 days of school left. They don't hear those kinds of things coming from my mouth. And not that we don't get tired and not that we don't get stressed, but can we channel that in a way that doesn't feed negativity, but that just encourages positive, that, oh my gosh, I know we're all in this together. Being connected is so important here. And I have a group of amazing administrator friends, Jimmy, one of them, who I know is always available for me if I have a question or if I have a complaint, to where I don't have to take it to my building necessarily and be the whiny principal. I don't want to be that. I want to be an example of positivity and support all the time. And hopefully my teachers see how I react in moments of stress and in moments of being tired or having things go wrong, because they do, and know that that's a way that it can be handled.
I have to go back to something that Krista said at the beginning, where she talked about investing in your top talent. That's obviously not an administrative role, but that is something that we really emphasize at the Academy. Something that Ron and Kim take a lot of pride in is, he talks about the runners of your school and how you have the runners, the joggers and the walkers, and how, a lot of times you can pour as much time as you want to in a lot of those walkers, but at the end of the day, how are you really benefiting from that? But if you really pour just a little bit of time into those runners, they go with it. They're excited. They're gonna do that much more because you took time to really say, hey, I noticed that you went out of your way. You're doing an excellent job, or I appreciate the way that you're taking time and pouring time into your lessons. I feel like a lot of times as teachers, sometimes we neglect to see those higher level learners because we think, oh, they've got it under control. It's the same way with educators. We really have to encourage those educators that are going out of their way to really take it to the next level, think outside of the box. We've got to show them, that we see that as well. So I think that, at the Academy, they're very big about that, about pushing us to our next level and recognizing how much time we're pouring into that. And, also what Amber said about having a positive attitude. The thing about being at the Academy is Ron and Kim are administrators, but they teach class every single day. They do carpool duty, they do lunch duty, any duty that they expect their teachers to do, they do. And so it's really easy to work for administrators like that because, sometimes you feel like with administrators, they've forgotten. They've forgotten what it's like to be in those trenches. They've forgotten what it's like to be in the classroom. They don't remember. But by showing your faculty and your staff, I remember, I'm going to come in and do model lessons. I'm going to, I'm going to be there and support that way to let you know that we're working as a team. We're all one. I'm not an administrator. I'm not necessarily above you. We're working here together, side by side. We're all in the trenches. We're all here for our school. We're all here at the end of the day for these kids. So how can we work together for these kids? So I think that those two things are definitely the most important things that we emphasize at the Academy and that we've seen become very successful.
That's great. I really appreciate you guys sharing so much about school culture. I feel like I have a really good picture of what's working and why it's working in your school. So I'll move into kind of a lightning round here. If you can just give just like one quick tip, what would be your advice to a classroom teacher who, wants to collaborate with colleagues and wants to innovate, wants to do amazing things for kids, but they just work with a team that is hard to get along with? What would be your advice? Just one quick tip or piece of advice for teachers who work with colleagues who are unsupportive or don't want to collaborate.
My quick tip would be to never join in, to never let them affect your mentality or attitude. And if you just literally cannot find someone on your team, on your campus, on your grade level, get connected. Get on Twitter, get on Instagram, find a Facebook group, find someone because there are tons of educators out there that are looking for someone like you that wants to be positive and creative. And it's just a matter of putting yourself in the right space.
I'm going to try to make this quick, but I definitely say, similar to our students, we have to find that teacher's area of strength. So I'm just going to share a quick story. When Wade and I visited the Academy and we went back to our public school and decided to implement the house system because our school desperately needed a change in culture. We were just in a really unfortunate situation with many different things. And so a lot of teachers, of course, it was one more thing to do, one more program. Oh, here we go again. We've seen so many different programs in the past 6 months, and every 3 months we're changing something new. We knew we were going to have some reluctant teachers, but at the end of the day, we knew how powerful this could be for our students. So one very reluctant teacher that was always, she was really not a negative person, but she was just kind of like, I'm done. I don't want to try anything else. I don't want to try anything new. She had always wanted to start a student council. And for years, because in the 6 years that I spent at this school, we went through 4 principals. So for years, she had always been turned down. So one thing that Wade did is he went to our principal and he said, you know what, we're doing the house initiative. Why don't we make, instead of having a student council, how about we have a house council? And he said, you know what, I know the perfect person that could lead this. I know the perfect person that could do this, and she would be excellent at it. And the principal said, you know what, that's a great idea. And so he ran back to this teacher and he said, you know what, I think this is the year. Why don't you start that house council? Why don't you make student council a house council? And she said, I don't know, I've tried for many years, I've asked, but nobody's been up for it. He said, well, why don't you just try one more time? Why don't you go to that principal? Why don't you go to our principal, just ask? And so she did, and the principal was all for it. Wade could have easily taken credit for that, but instead it was about finding that teacher's strength and getting that teacher that was a little bit hesitant on board and showing them, that when you invest in something and when you're accountable, teachers are going to be more excited, enthusiastic, and passionate about what you're doing. So I say you've got to find an outlet for those teachers. A lot of times people say, oh, you got to improve on your weaknesses. But at the end of the day, you're really going to do better to improve on your strengths because that's what you're good at. So you have to find what those teachers are good at and really try to push them and get them involved in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes that's just, like they mentioned earlier, saying yes. You've got to give them that opportunity. You can't just say, oh, I'm concerned about how this teacher would handle it. Give them an opportunity to show you that they really can thrive in areas.
Great points, Amber and Hope. I guess my one tip to teachers would just be to get to know them first as a person, find out what motivates them, and figure out how to message whatever it is that you are trying to work towards in a way that serves that motivation. So if it's time, pay, performance, like how how is what you're trying to work toward, how can you message it in a way that plays to that particular thing that motivates them?
I would just say I kind of look at it as a challenge, right? And I think a lot of times our teachers are tested in that way. But one of the things I always even think about myself is don't make it about them. I think you have to make it about yourself, because ultimately that's the only part that you can control in. So I just try to tell people about, kind of how can we model this problem solving aspect, right? Look at it as if you were a classroom teacher and you had 2 students in your classroom that were struggling in this capacity. What would you tell them? How would you, what would you share with them? And so are we modeling the same thing we would be sharing with our students? So definitely, I think I heard it here a little bit, maybe play to their strengths, figure out what their interests are, just like they're a student, right? What are their interests? What's their passion? What are their strengths? And then just don't get discouraged and just think long term. A lot of times these things have a way of working themselves out. If you're patient, it just takes some time sometimes. Because a lot of it, I think, begins once again, it's just cultivating those relationships.
Okay, so can you also give a quick tip? What's the number one thing that teachers at your school do to support kids? We've talked a lot about supporting other teachers, but what's the number one thing you think that teachers do to really build that supportive and nurturing environment for kids to learn in?
A couple things, I think. Number one is I think it's really important that students, or the teachers, number one, when it comes to supporting students, is really to honor their voice, right? Give them the choice. Certainly, one of the things I think is really important too is, are we taking time to gather feedback from our students? And again, that's the student voice part. And I think it gives you as a teacher credibility with your kids. I think it gives the impression to kids and helps them believe that you truly care about what they have to say and that they have a voice. I kind of talked about it earlier in terms of just, it's really important, I think, for teachers to really go out of the way and how are they interacting with students? How are they engaging them in the hallways? Are they taking time out of their school to do those types of things? Are they attending events? Student events, obviously, is another big one. I also think one of the ways that we support students is how we discipline students, and we use those opportunities as teachable moments and learning opportunities more than we do about punishment and being punitive and those types of things. I know one of the things in our school that I'm always really proud of is we have a student leadership here team called RSVP, which stands for Raising Student Voice and Participation. And I'm just really proud how much our staff supports that student leadership team. We do these things called summits, where our students will go in classrooms, and it's a way to collectively get student input and student voice from the entire student body. And our teachers have not only allowed this, but they also have been trained by our students in terms of how this works. So, and lastly, I would say one of the special ways here is we do this thing called the Students First Banquet, where our staff will collectively come together and nominate students that have overcome some significant challenges to continue to move towards graduation and stay the course. And that evening is very special because not only are the teachers supporting the students and helping them succeed and be successful, but we're also asking the students to go out and share with us the adults in the school that has also been a significant impact or made a significant impact on their lives and help them and support them. So to come together in a community event like that and celebrate it with our teachers and our staff and quite frankly, our community is always a very special night. And it's just amazing the stories that are told that night. And it reminds us again always that every student has a story, and quite frankly, so does every teacher. And come together to share those stories and build that community is pretty awesome.
I couldn't agree more, Jimmy. And one of the things that I heard you say was that teachers getting to know the students outside of the regular school day, so attending student events. And I think that's a huge part. I feel like I've said it a couple of times, the staff as well, but it's the same with students. Know them as a person first and as a student second, and take time to get to know and invest in them outside of your regular classroom. Celebrate their progress. I think another thing would be to be consistent and follow through on everything. Follow through on your promises, follow through on your expectations, follow through on everything. And finally, I think another thing that I heard you say, Jimmy, that made me think about another thing was just have their voice be heard. And I think a huge part of this is knowing that we talked a lot about vision and the importance of having a clear vision and mission for our staff and from our leader, but the students are our vision carriers. They're the ones that make that vision a reality for our school. And I think understanding that they carry they're stakeholders in that vision, and having them know what the vision is and invest in that as well. So one of the things that I see a lot of our schools doing is talking about legacies, in particular at when I taught 8th grade at Hope, we talked about our legacy as an 8th grade, like what was the thing that we wanted to leave behind for the class coming up next, about what it meant to be a Hope Christian School 8th grader.
The staff that I had the opportunity to work with last year, I think, is probably one of the hardest working staffs I've ever seen. There wasn't one single person who didn't pull more than their fair share of what we did. And I think that knowing that they were committed to meeting every single kid where they were was just incredible to witness. Whether it be a 4th grade teacher who had a relationship with a 3rd grader, or those kindergarten teachers who would mentor some of those 4th grade students, they really go out of their way to develop those relationships to where they know that they care not, again, about their test score, but about them as a person. The very stereotypical of doing things outside of school and going to their sporting events and going to the baseball fields because you get to see 10 kids all on a Saturday. Watching these teachers build these relationships that last far beyond the typical 8 to 3 was just very, very impressive. And those relationships contribute to a positive culture. You can't help but love a teacher who knows a kid's heart. And when they go out of their way to get to know someone, even the kids who aren't going to perform well, or in spite of the fact of how well they perform, I think that goes a long way towards building that culture.
I couldn't agree more with what Jimmy, Krista, and Amber have all shared. But I think that one of the ways that we can definitely, create a nurturing environment for our students is to challenge them. I definitely agree with what everyone has said, and those are all things that I have done as a teacher as well. But at the Academy, one thing that we're big about is really creating that environment that's filled with rigorous instruction and really pushing our kids, to the next level. And it's definitely enthusiastic instruction and filled with passion and excitement and, innovative lessons. But at the same time, it's a balance between that and manners and respect. And, Jimmy also hit on the behavior and discipline in the classroom. And I think that's a huge part. One thing that we're really big on is those soft skills. We talk a lot about soft skills at our school. And every Friday when we have teachers in to visit, one of the biggest things that our students have to do is the first thing that when those teachers arrive into the library is they're immediately having to engage in conversations with them. We're teaching them how to hold a conversation, how to maintain eye contact, how to, give a proper handshake. I think a lot of times those are things that we forget as educators because we're so caught up in those standards. But at the same time, when our students go into interviews or they go into college, when they're trying to get into college, those skills are equally as important as those academic areas. And so we're really big on allowing our students to interact with people. We have something called the Amazing Shake every year, and it's a competition where it starts out, we have about 20 to 40 business executives that come into our gymnasium. The kids go around, they have different stations that they have to do, whether it's selling them a drum or, giving them a handshake, or if someone drops a carton of pencils or some file folders, how do you react to those situations? How do you socially react to those? And then students will advance from there, and they'll go to different businesses and corporations. And this year they actually then in the final rounds went off to New York. They were interviewed by Oprah Winfrey. So we really teach them things where, yes, academics are very important and critical, but at the same time, how do you approach people? How do you handle those social situations that are just as important in everyday life? So I think that's another way that we support our students and give them those skills along with the academic skills.
Wow, so much good advice here. That I'm just taking furious notes here. I can't wait to put this whole blog post together for everyone because you guys just have some really great takeaways. Let me close up by asking you to share, what can one individual teacher do to create change in school culture? I know that a lot of people who are listening wish that their schools functioned the way that your schools did. So what would you say to teachers who maybe, are in a school where there's a strong vision. What can they do to create change in school culture? What's something that you wish that every teacher knew and would be willing to do in terms of building school culture?
Never underestimate the power of a smile. Be smiley, be happy, show that you love what you do, and let that permeate. Walking through the halls, speaking to students, speaking to other teachers, speaking to parents. I think that a light has to start somewhere, and if you are the light that's shining from that campus, then that at least gives it a place to build. And everybody likes someone who enjoys what they do. Everybody likes a happy person, and not the fake cheesy happy, but the genuine. I became an educator because of kids. I love what I do. This is what I've chosen to do with my life. Let yourself be that example and let them see that shine through you.
I'm just going to say something that sounds really simple, but it's actually quite hard, is do something. A lot of times as educators, the school that we were at before we went to the Ron Clark Academy, it was a public school. We were Title I. We had 88% free and reduced lunch. We had very little parental involvement, like I mentioned earlier. We had a huge change in principles and leadership, but we had to do something. In that school, we could have easily made just about any excuse out there. Academically, our students were struggling. But at the end of the day, we had to find, or I, as a teacher, even though I was surrounded by educators that the morale was low and they didn't really want to be there on a daily basis, I had to figure out a way to, I could either drown myself in the excuses or I could start finding solutions. So it's a step at a time. That's what we have to remember, is that, we're not superheroes, even though I would like to think that we are, because I think that all teachers are, but we're not superheroes. We can't change the world overnight. So find something that you can do, whether it's a smile, like Amber mentioned, or whether, your strength is, writing songs, or you love music. We love music at the Academy. Incorporate music into your classroom. Do something that makes you happy. Because as the teacher in that classroom every single day, if you're happy, that's going to translate to your students being happy. That's going to radiate throughout you. And, happiness, same way as a smile, is contagious. So do something, and do something that makes you happy. And hopefully you'll start to see that other teachers, catch that fire, catch that buzz, and they want to join in as well. And hopefully they'll be open to your ideas and allow you to share things that you have found successful with your students.
I would say, first of all, always start off with the belief that people's intentions are good. I just think that's really important to start with that mindset. You believe that. But I think as leaders, or whether you're a classroom teacher leader, and we've talked about this before, that everybody has the capacity to lead. I always think in terms of vision, in terms of, what does that look like? If you could look down the road and see what that community would look like. And I always talk about, how do you build a community that doesn't currently exist? Honestly, I just think it begins with you, or in my case, it would begin with me. So I think what happens a lot of time is people are afraid to make themselves and put themselves out there and be vulnerable. And I think we have to continue to aspire to be great. I just really think it comes down to that, and being comfortable in your own skin, and knowing, I have hope and I have faith, because quite frankly, if we don't have that, then I'm not sure what we're all doing here. I'm not sure why I'm having this Google Hangout right now, if I don't think that things can be better. So I do think a lot of it begins with our own attitudes, and do we truly believe that one individual can be that change, right? Can they really make that impact? And I hope we all believe that we can, because isn't that what we expect from our students every day in the classroom when we talk to them? And wouldn't we expect them to have that same type of attitude? So we definitely have to model by example. And I think we just heard that you have to act. At some point you have to act. So, again, if you go back and you believe that all people's intentions are good, then I think we have a responsibility to act by setting up a meeting, having conversations with whoever that conversation needs to be had with, whether it's a department chair, a floor leader, or quite frankly, your building principal, and then come with a solution, come with a plan, come with some ideas, and most importantly, stay positive.
Wow, I couldn't say it better myself. So I guess my first piece of advice would be to write down everything that Jimmy, Amber, and Hope just shared. But in all seriousness, when you say what's something that a teacher could do to improve school culture, my answer to that is honestly anything at all. And I think you guys really emphasized it already. Just to make sure that, number one, start with the assumption. Assume the best about your people. Assume you're all on the same side of the fence. Assume that everyone got into this field of education because they wanted to make a difference in kids' lives, and that they believe in their purpose. to serve in education. And then be solution-minded and be positive, relentlessly positive despite your circumstances. Don't let your circumstances determine your attitude, your behaviors. Let your true character determine that despite what's going on around you. Find someone. I guess I would add to what Jimmy, Hope, and Amber said by just saying, find someone in your building, outside of your building, to lock arms with and move forward. We touched a little bit on the idea of vision, but if your school culture isn't what you hope it to be today, sit down and write a crazy bold vision about what you wish your school culture could look like, and then backwards design. We do that all the time instructionally with lesson plans and objectives in math and reading, but we don't oftentimes take the time we need to do this when it comes to school culture. So write that big bold goal and backwards design it so that it becomes small incremental things that you can work on, and then just start with just one thing, and start with that one thing within your sphere of influence. If it's a policy that you absolutely have no influence over or cannot change, don't waste your time on that. Start and focus your energy and attention within your sphere of influence. Might be just within your own classroom with your students, and be a beacon of light to everyone else in that building.
Great. Thank you guys so much for sharing your stories and your experiences and your advice with us. And to those of you who are listening, please head over to truthforteachers.com and click on the blog post for this episode. I'm going to have a whole bunch of notes in there and some great takeaways that you can write down and share on social media, share with other teachers in your building to help build that positive school culture. And you can also leave a comment there. Specifically, we would like to hear, what are staff members in your school doing to build a positive school culture? And we'd also love to hear any questions that you have about how you can make a difference. We know that when it comes to working toward a positive school culture, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it. So have a great week. Thank you for joining us, and I'll be back with another bonus extended episode next month.